Well, our moms think we're funny. All right, hi, I'm Acomi.
Hey everybody, it's Turk182.
Welcome to Our Moms Think We're Funny.
Uh, I know I said this earlier, but I just gotta say it again. I'm super excited to this is what our second or third recording for season 3,
Yeah.
and I'm just so excited that we're in our third season.
Yeah.
That's
It's crazy to think about, and we've talked about it off the podcast, that like the average for podcasts is that they only run 7 episodes before they die.
really
Yeah.
only 7.
Yeah, so
That's crazy.
yeah, it's pretty wild that we just can't take a hint. So
Well, we said about this and our Let's Watches is that as long as we're having fun,
Mhm.
obviously we want more. We want to have lots of viewers and share our what we think is a fun time and. But as long as we're having fun, then we'll keep doing it. I'm still having fun. I think this is awesome.
yeah,
And
it's a blast.
and we were fortunate enough to become a part of the I should say a part. I don't make it seem like we're being sponsored by them, but that Our Moms Think We're Funny is now available on iHeartRadio too.
Yeah.
So that just happened right before the launch of season 3. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Yeah. So I mean that just kind of helps fuel me even more, and at the same time, want to make the show better too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm really proud of what we've done. Not every episode has been like a surefire smash hit, but I can always find something in there or a couple things in each episode that really makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But being where we are and going to season 3, it does make me want to kind of really push things further and try to make it still better and keep it the way that we always envisioned it to be.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
So-
So with that said, what you got for me?
So, well, we've talked a bit. I mean, as anybody who listens to the show at all knows, we're both huge comic fans, and you and I have been talking.
Hey, don't we make those?
On occasion, yeah.
Okay.
Such as they are.
Yeah, I could always stand to make a few more.
Yeah. I'm trying to get more into it. Definitely trying to get more productive with things.
I'm sure what I need to do is because I'm buying tons of comic books, and of course I've got the other podcast with Wallcrawler in the gutters.
Yeah.
I need to start limiting myself to I need to write a comic book for every 10 I buy because I'm buying a shit ton of comic books on a regular basis.
That could work.
And the thing is and when it comes to a trade, you have to make it even thing. For every trade I buy, I've got to write an issue.
That's fair, yeah.
Because I'm buying way more than I'm producing.
Yeah, no, I dig that. But, I'm more into, like, independent guys than you are. I do more with the indie books. And as a result, I tend to gravitate more towards webcomics than you do, I think. And there's some really good webcomics out there. I have really enjoyed Bad Machinery. I've really enjoyed Sam and Fuzzy. He took it down so he could sell the book, but Doug TenNapel did Rat Fist as a webcomic a lot of years ago, and that was a great webcomic. And of course, like everybody reads like PvP and Penny Arcade and stuff like that. I've read through the archives of those before. But you and I have both stumbled across some more recent webcomics, and they're kind of viral, like little one-hit wonders. It's not like it's not like the old days where, everybody and their grandma read Penny Arcade and everybody knew about it, and even if you didn't read the whole thing, you were at least familiar with it. And I really don't see that happening anymore, but I do see a lot of these, like, viral little one-page comics that just take off like crazy, like the This Is Fine Dog.
Right.
And
there was actually one that I was reading, a webcomic, and I quite enjoyed it until I met the creator.
That'll do it.
And the creator wasn't a bad person, but they had absolutely no personality. It's like I was trying to talk to them, and I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like you're not engaging me in any way in any kind of like conversation. And I was like, okay, and that really just kind of put me off. Like I said, they weren't mean, they weren't rude. but they were like there, and I'm like, well, you're here to promote your stuff, right?
I think that
And it was just like,
yeah, I think with webcomic artists, they tend to be, and I would like to launch a webcomic someday. I've talked about that for years, for as long as we've known each other. I've talked about doing that. And, I'm slowly gathering stuff together. But I think webcomic artists tend to be even more socially awkward and hermetic than a normal comic artist because it's like they're just there. They're at their home alone working on it on their computer. They're going to be a lot less likely to do this like typical con scene that we're used to of like, I've got to put myself out there and kind of sell myself. So, and yeah, that's happened with me and you. Like, I introduced you to that one guy who did that really, really nice fantasy webcomic. I don't want to drop his name because it was a really awkward conversation, but I talked you into buying his book at Heroes that year.
The thick one that I haven't read yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's over there, and I keep wanting to, but it's like everything else that I get, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's a big time investment, but yeah, like, you and I were like trying to have a conversation with the guy, and it was like, yeah, no, I really like your stuff, and he's like, uh-huh.
Yeah, and I know that not to get off on something different here, but I know that when it comes to a lot of these people, I'm not going to say they're awkward individuals because that's not it. But there's something to be said for people that do this kind of work. That a lot of them, they have a very tight knit like social network, and it's not that they're not used to being in crowds or being out with people, but that's kind of it. It's not that's not their normal routine. It is kind of stepping out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it.
It can be a little awkward to try to engage in people in conversation for things, and especially when someone is coming, like, you know what you do and you like your work and you think you're good at it, but when someone's coming up to you and they're like, man, I love your stuff, it's so great, you are awesome, you are just amazing, and it's like, it's like, how do you take that? And because most people will look and they'll look at their work and be like, man, I'm not happy with the way that page turned out. I'm not happy with the way that page turned out. And as fans, we won't even see those little what they see as imperfections, and we just keep going. So I can see where when you're not used to that, it can make it a little bit awkward. But then at the same time, that's what we want the people to be like. We want them to be humble.
Yeah.
So, but then we also criticize them when they are humble because that humble or modesty turns into awkwardness.
Yeah.
And then just kind of makes things feel like weird.
I don't know, because, with some of the pros, a lot of the pros who I'm, super, super fond of are also really humble guys, and they do amazing, they've changed the face of the industry. Just like when I met Stan Sakai, the rumors are true, he is the nicest guy in comics, and he was so warm and so personable, and even though, you were there, the line was just crazy long, wrapped around the entire convention hall, the entire weekend. And so, I only had, 30 seconds to talk to him, but it felt like I was the only person that really mattered to him in that 30-second span.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. That was, such a good interaction. But yeah, it is kind of a weird balance because, if I tell somebody that I'm a big fan of their work, I don't want them to be like, why wouldn't you be? It's like, okay, well...
That's fantastic.
Fuck you too, buddy.
I'll tell you, I backed an artist on Kickstarter that I've known from some work that he'd done in the past, and he's not quite as indie as some of the other people because he has worked for some of the big companies, but he's done his own thing, and I backed a project that he'd done, and something with everybody's backed Kickstarter before with different things would know that if you're the person that's doing the Kickstarter, you go through their whole service and you'll send an email out or something kind of like an update that will go to everybody. And it happens a lot of times with surveys where they'll send surveys out and be like, okay, the survey's going to be closing in 2 days. I don't have responses from these people. But sometimes,
please send me your current address.
Right.
I get that a lot with my Kickstarters.
But then sometimes I'll never get that. But what happens is I won't get the email with that, but it'll go into a notifications or an email in Kickstarter itself, either through the app or through the website, but it won't ever email to me. But then I'll get all the other emails, and I'm like, I never got that, but then they can't send it back out. So this guy was he was like, hey, I need you to complete the survey. I was like, dude, I never got it. He's like, well, check through all your stuff, check your spam. And so I went through everything. I was like, look, I don't have it, man. And I saw in the in one of the updates in the comments, he mentioned somebody's like, well, if you don't complete the survey, you're still going to get your book, but it'll be after I've sent everything else out, and then I'll be able to tell what I've got left. And I was like, look, I saw that your response to that person. I'm cool in the gang if I got to wait for it. Not a big deal. I'm going to get my book. I know that. So if I get mine like a couple weeks after everybody else, it's no big deal. I mean, there are things that I've kickstarted that were like a year late. There are things that I kickstarted that I received that were nowhere near what they were originally supposed to be. And there's things that kickstarted that I have never seen and never will see. So
I've had pretty good experience with Kickstarter and Indiegogo so far, but it's also like, pretty select people that I back.
It's only been, I think, 2 items. There were 2 items that I backed that I didn't get and never will get. There was one that I got that was completely different than how I backed it. And I knew I was in trouble when halfway through, after the Kickstarter ended and halfway through the campaign, they were like, yeah, we've made some changes, as we've been playtesting this game. I'm like, that comes before you do the Kickstarter. You're playtesting it, and I'm like, overall, though, the game isn't bad. It's fun, but the way it was originally pitched was a lot different. But overall, I can't complain. I did get everything. It was a little late, but I did get everything I was supposed to. Yeah. Another one, though, actually hit a financial issue, and there was a big lawsuit. Excuse me. I shouldn't say lawsuit. There was actually no. Sorry. There was 3 because I don't have my Terminator game. I did get my Evil Dead one after all that. After Space Goat went all fucktard, and then was it Jasco and Lynn Vader, they came in and picked it up and all that, but I never get my Terminator one.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, but then there was another one too. But then there was another one, which, I'm just going to go ahead and mention it. It was the one that was the Bruce Lee one.
Yeah, I remember that.
That had it was officially licensed by the Lee estate or whatever it was. And then, and I can't complain too much because some people didn't even get their base game. At least I got my base game. I just didn't get any of the add-ons. And then they were like, oh, there's like some kind of lawsuit now over because people didn't get their games and the Leaf, it was family name was attached to it. And I think that there was some kind of thing going on. I have no idea what's going on with that. Like, you can't get any information on it at all. I don't know what's going to happen with it.
Wow.
But so, like I said, so that being said, I'm used to it's Kickstarter, so it's not guaranteed.
It's a crapshoot,
right? And you just kind of, just do your best. And so I was like, if it's going to be a couple weeks late, then that's fine. Some things like I said, I'm never going to get ever, so I can stand a couple weeks. And this guy actually reached out to me on Facebook. Looked me up and messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, do this. And I did. I actually ended up finding the survey, completed the survey. He was like, cool. And then a couple days later, he friended me on Facebook.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, he didn't have to do that. But it was and I was like, that was pretty awesome of him. And it was like, I thought I kind of expressed myself fairly well in our emails that, I was cool with waiting, but for him, it was really important that he got that to me.
Yeah. You became his priority. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I respect that.
He actually has another book that's out right now. It's an art book, and I really wish I could back it, but after, buying those Walt Simonsons.
Coke and hookers.
Yeah. After buying those 2 Walt Simonson artist editions, I don't have the money for it. Plus,
that'll do it.
I have so many art books that I really can't do it anymore. That's one thing I draw the line on, were art books and prints. I just can't do it.
Yeah, no, I get that. And we're a little bit off topic, but
just indie.
Yeah, it's all part of the indie scene. I almost never am comfortable backing a Kickstarter if the art is not completely done. Like, that's what makes me want to back a Kickstarter and Indiegogo, is if they say, I have the book drawn, I just need money to print it. Then I know I'm very likely to get a project in my hands.
Right.
The exception I make for that is Doug TenNapel, because the dude's done like 17 graphic novels by now. And so if he says, the story's written, I'm ready to start the art as soon as I get backed, then it's like, well, shit, I know that you're gonna do it. You draw like 3 pages a day, of course I can, comfortably back that, but beyond that, if they are gonna start drawing it after they get back, I'm probably not gonna back it.
There are some that I looked at, and I'll look at their history as far as like what projects they've created in the past.
Yeah.
And how successful those were.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be like, okay, so that's how I go for people I've never like backed before, something new.
Yeah.
But there was two like professional guys that had a Kickstarter out there, and I was all for that. And they were actually bringing back one of their books in the past, and
that wasn't Cyberfrog, was it?
No. I'm not going to open that gate. Are
you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
We've gone down some pretty dark roads.
I'm pretty sure. But no, but they were the artist and writer. I've talked to them on different occasions at different cons and stuff, and the writer was saying that he's like, yeah, the book's kind of delayed. The artist is he's working on it, but he's got a couple of things he's working on too, and he's having some issues as far as like getting the work done. He's moving a lot slower than normal, and I'm like, you know what? Again, these are like professionals that have worked with made some of the major. So I'm cool with them. Plus, I see them at cons. Like I'm not saying on a regular basis, but I've seen them at the past couple of cons I've gone to and talked to them.
Right.
So I know them at least on that level, not on a super professional or on a fan to artist thing.
Right.
Yeah, and nothing more than that. But so I know I'm going to get my book, and it's going to be a little late. But at the same time, I'm also someone that is struggling with. I've got books I got to write and things I got to do. So I completely understand how you can kind of fall behind or have difficulty in completing your, whatever it is that's going on, even though you really want to. Yeah. So I'm like, yep, I'm cool. I get it.
Yeah, totally get it. Cause I have some books that have been in production for years. I definitely get that.
Yeah.
It's mostly just having a track record. It's like, I just need you to prove to me that you are capable of finishing a book, even if it's not on time. I just want to know that, it's like you said, you want to get what you paid for. So I want to know that I'm going to get that product in my hands at the end of it.
But the other thing with the Kickstarter is like the indie guys, and talking about indie books and stuff. It's like that's really, especially right now, it's kind of where you're going to find a lot of your indie people out there.
Yeah,
is on that, and it is kind of a bit of a crapshoot. But there are people that are trying to do good books, and sometimes it's you're taking a webcomic and putting it together as something to sell because
and I've gotten a lot of print editions of webcomics
are free, so
yeah. And I've gotten a lot of print editions of webcomics, but it's just interesting because when I was first getting into webcomics, which was probably about 10 years ago, and I just kind of discovered webcomics as a whole thing all at once, and that was like right when Rat Fist launched. It was like right when PvP was at its peak because it started going downhill after a while.
I don't think I've ever read PvP.
It's really not too bad. Like I said, there's a sweet spot. It gets a little bit down for my tastes over time. What else is there? Of course, Sam and Fuzzy. There was Sheldon. Sheldon was pretty good. Sheldon was done very newspaper style, so it's a little bit reminiscent of Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay.
What are some of the others? Oh, yeah, Chris Straub with what was that? Starshift, something like that. And nowadays he does Chainsaw Suit, which I've shown you some Chainsaw Suits.
Okay.
They're like intentionally badly drawn, but he's like making fun of, the bad indie comics from the 80s and 90s.
Cyanide and Happiness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cyanide and Happiness is a lot of fun.
And what's that other one? Crap, what's that? It's a newer one that's out there now that I know you like because you've mentioned to me quite a few times how much you really like that one, and I'm trying to think of what it's called now.
I don't remember the one you're talking about. I gotta say, Octopus Pie by Meredith Gran, one of the best webcomics I've ever read.
Octopus Pie, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super, super good. That one's beautiful. Girls with Slingshots, pretty good. I actually got to meet her at Small Press Expo.
Oh,
The
really?
year we went. Yeah, she's super
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
Was I there? I mean, did I meet her? Or
No, we were heading back to the table, and I saw her and was like, "Oh, holy shit, that's the GWSS girl."
okay.
And so I was like, "I'll be right back." And so I had a little one-on-one. It was while everybody was like packing up their table, so it was a fast conversation. But she was super cool.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. John Allison did Bad Machinery, and what was the one that he did before that? Scary Go Round. Scary Go Round. So he's got some really good stuff.
I kind of like that name, Scary Go Round.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a little mystery story type thing, and I've shown you some of his books while we were like going through some bargain bins. You actually were kind of digging his art.
I have to remember that one.
Yeah,
I'll look it up so I can.
Yeah,
look at it
I'll have
again.
to pull it up for you because like these days he uses the program I use, Clip Studio. And
Okay.
yeah, I actually learned a lot of cool things from him because he's like, oh yeah, if you do this and this and this, then you can like connect your word balloons and you can do this with your panels. It's like, oh, I love you.
Oh, I remember it is now. That other one, Carmine and Tofu. I know you like that one.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a classic. Very reminiscent of Garfield.
Yeah, it's a newer one, but you've expressed that you find that one to be kind of funny.
I hear the creator's kind of a prick though.
Well, I think sometimes they are. I mean, well, you said it's reminiscent of Garfield, so that would put in the Jim Davis line, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Man, fuck Jim Davis. But yeah, no, it's interesting because all these webcomics that we're talking about, you know, they're known series, you know?
Mm-hmm.
People talk about them and they're talking about this overarching story, and you know, something like Sam and Fuzzy, it's super ambitious. It's been going around since 2003, and it's all pretty much one consistent story for the most part. I think like the first 2 or 3 years, they were kind of standalone gag strips, and then it just became this whole thing of telling like a consistent story, and I think he's pretty close to being totally done with it by now, if he's not already. I kind of fell by the wayside on reading it because, you know, real life caught up with me and kicked the shit out of me.
God, real life fucking sucks.
Right? But I hear he's a really nice guy too. I hope I get to meet him someday. But it's a weird trend these days because I don't see people talking about a lot of series, but I see, for the most part, I see some series still get talked about. But you know, what I see really take off are now these little standalone one-page strips.
Okay.
And, you know, it'll be like this like one-page long gag story, and then it takes off and it becomes viral, and then, like, I never see anything else out of that series.
Right.
And it's kind of weird. Now, there are some series that still go off and go strong, and, like, some of them, I don't even know the name of them, but, like, you've probably seen it. The stories where, like, the Grim Reaper has to take people's pets, and he's, like, super emo, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry I had to take you, but your owner's not coming back, and you froze to death in the winter, and stuff like that. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
God. I mean, they're not badly done. They're well drawn, but, like, all the stories are written kind of the same, and it's always that kind of thing of, like... God, it's gonna be super awkward if I meet any of these creators.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, you're talking about how you see something of it and you don't see anything else. You know, it wasn't until we were at Small Press that I'd always seen that This Is Fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I never saw any of the other panels like
Yeah.
before, just like the 4 you always saw.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's like I don't know, 8 panels before that, and like another 6 after that.
It's like a 4 or 5 page story, yeah, where he's like, "This is not fine."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really good. It's like a really well done, well drawn story. I'll say, and we've talked about this. The Altered comics, like like everybody knows, everybody would know it if they saw it. Nobody knows the title of it, but everybody knows it when they see it. And I'll say that, you know, I've met the creator for that, Shin. He's a super nice guy, really friendly, really personable. And I think that, you know, when it was getting started, I really enjoyed them. I thought that they were pretty well done. But I feel like he kind of needs to find himself and kind of go back to those old days. And, you know, it's kind of like what I was saying with PvP. There was a sweet spot where it was like, yeah, this is really good, and then it just kind of moved away from my area of interest.
So let me ask you, because you're talking about that, when you say it kind of moved away from your interest, what changed, to your knowledge, what changed with the the series? Did it change because like it matured, or did it kind of like start to go down a different path, or did it just become a completely different series?
It really varies from series to series. Like with PvP, it just I like with PvP, I think Scott Kurtz kind of wanted to move away from what he originally did with it, and it was in some cases it was little subtle things like, oh, I don't like this character design, I didn't make it to where he works in 3 dimensions, so I'm going to redraw him. But then in other things, it's just like arbitrary changes that like, you know, why would you even do that? Why do you suddenly want to draw your people like super realistically? Or whatever. In the case of like the Shin, in the case of like the Altered comics, it's some of it's that his art style has kind of changed. Like it feels like some of the art's a little bit more rushed. And maybe that's an unfair judgment, because, you know, I get it. You know, some of my stuff looks different than some of my other stuff. But some of the art feels rushed to me personally. It's not as, you know, the lines aren't as smooth, it's a little bit, like, sketchier. And maybe that's just, like, a stylistic choice on his part, but it feels like it lacks the polish of some of the older strips. And, you know, in some of it, it's like, and we've talked about it, one of his really popular gags, and a lot of people, like, really, you know, this is when people are going to be like, oh yeah, I know that comic, is that he depicts, like, certain emotions as, like, brightly colored, muscular characters. And so, you know, that's, like, a really typical thing, is that he'll show his character, be like, oh, I'm going to be so productive this week, and then, like, a big purple muscle man's going to come in with, like, depression written across his chest, and he'll punch the character in the face, and be like, oh, I guess I'm not going to get anything done this week. And, like, you know, when he was first doing those jokes, it was like, oh yeah, that's clever. I get the analogy, but now it's like, you've done that an awful lot of times now.
Right.
And, you know, I get repeat gags, I appreciate repeat gags, but it's such a fine line between this is a well-known repeat gag that's reliable versus at what point do you just become Garfield kicking Odie off the table?
Right.
Where it's like, okay, you've been doing this for 35 years now.
It's like, are you just trying to tell me that, like, I'm not getting any work done. Like, this is why, like, this is it. Like, I'm writing a strip to say why I'm not writing a strip. You know?
Right.
There was a guy, and I can't find the book, and I can't remember the guy's name, because I've looked through all my stuff, and I'm sure there's probably a box somewhere I didn't look through, but I thought for sure I put it in one of my comic boxes. But recently, within the past year, I've gone through all of my boxes, because I sorted them all for all the ones that I had got back when I worked at a comic book store, and put them all in, I separated them all by alphabet. I have not put them in alphabetical order yet, because I got to mix them with the other books, but I went through all my boxes, and I can't find this thing. But it was a collection that this guy, when I went to SPX years ago, and it was actually, like, not every strip was funny, but it was actually pretty funny. And I can't remember the name of it or anything. And when I tried to look it up online, like, I always get, like, shit. Because the only thing I really remember is the dancing Wookiee. So if you're the guy that wrote the strip that had the dancing Wookiee in it, like, please, like, contact me on, like, I never put my Instagram up because I don't really post any real things, but, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And just tell me who you are and, like, where I can get that old, like, collection if it's still available. But I met him. He was really cool, and I got this collection of strips he had done. And when he was in college, he did strips for the college newspaper. And whenever he did a strip that they didn't like, that they thought was too controversial, they would replace it with one he had done before of a dancing Wookiee, which is Chewbacca just dancing, like, with this, like, disco ball or whatever. And it was just 3 pages of just Chewbacca dancing.
Nice.
And so it's like, yeah, so it kind of makes you think of that guy. So it's like, are you having, like, problems? Like, I can't think of anything original. So now I'm just going to write another strip about how I want to be original, but I can't because this thing is coming in the way. So basically, you're just redrawing the dancing Wookiee over and over again.
Right, yeah. And, you know, and I don't say that because I don't want to sound, like, critical of the guy. I like him, and I like his work. I like the comic. I can see myself buying a collection of Altered comics. But, you know, it is, you know, things where it's like, it's interesting to me that his art is going in a different direction. And it's like, I don't really think of it as growth upward. I kind of think of it as, like, growth sideways.
Right.
And it's like, you know, I kind of miss the old stuff. That's really all I'm saying about that. But then, what we've been bitching about, and it's taken us half of the show to get here, but what...
Sorry, you just made me think of a line from Jay-Z when he's like, if you like my old stuff, buy my old albums.
Right. I don't know. Wasn't there some kind of Woody Allen movie or something where he like gets abducted by aliens and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we like your old movies when you were actually trying to be funny."
I'm sorry, I'm a black guy. Do you think I've ever seen a Woody Allen movie?
I've never seen one all the way through. I mean,
Only Woody Allen movie I've ever seen was Ants.
that doesn't count. But yeah, no, the ones that we've been bitching about have been like these ones where they just intentionally do shitty art and there's no joke to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're already making your gimmick, oh, I'm just going to draw stick figures. And it's like, well, I hate to break it to you, but that's not an original thing, because Cyanide and Happiness do it, and XKCD does it, and it's like, they do it well.
Right.
They're drawing stick figures, but kind of like Matt Fiesel, they're doing good stick figures. There's a difference between a good stick figure and a shitty stick figure. So it's like, well, that's already, you've already got people who are actually good at drawing stick figures who are competing with you. So, that's not a gimmick anymore. It's becoming a style in and of itself.
Right. And, for me, for someone that can't draw, I mean, if I really sat down and really kind of put my brain to arm to pen to paper, I could probably do something decent, but it would take me quite a while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, if I was going to do something like that, it probably would be a stick figure or the best stick figure I can. But, like you were saying, that's really hard. It's really hard to, even if you just draw a stick figure, to really capture the character and the movement. And in a stick figure, you have to really be able to, and you have to find style. So, for example, Cyanide and Happiness, people, they've got stick arms and legs, but they've got bodies and they've got full heads. Yeah. And it's like, it's not just a circle and then line.
Right,
there's more to it.
It's closer to like the Ivan Brunetti style of character. And, yeah, I mean, like, I think they do it pretty well. And there's just like, 4 guys who do the strips for Cyanide and Happiness?
I don't know. I just know that they do a really good job of like, kind of making them seem alive and emote.
Yeah, very good with the emotions. So, but yeah, like, shit, you sent me one a few weeks back.
I see a lot of them posted on Reddit, and I look at it, and again, we've talked about this before as well, where I will send you things and I'm like, dude, I was like, is this funny? Because I don't think this is funny.
Yeah.
And then of course you're like, no, it's not funny. But then again, our interests are so well aligned that more than likely I'm not going to get the objective viewpoint. If I say I think this sucks, you'll be like, yeah, it kind of sucks. And sometimes you'll be like, it's not that bad. I can see a little bit of it, but yeah, I can see why you hate it.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll try to find like redeeming qualities, but like I don't know. The one you sent me was like, a guy is wearing an eye patch, and he's like, wow, what happened to your eye? How'd you lose your eye? And he's like, I served in the military. I lost my eye while I was serving overseas. And then he walks along, and somebody was like wearing a surgical mask because we're in the middle of a fucking global plague. And he's like, oh no, did you lose your mouth?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even a dad joke. It's not an uncle joke. It's just bad. Like, that's the kind of shit that, like when I was working at that Amish bakery that I would expect to hear. Whereas like, what? That's not even funny. That barely even warrants recognition.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I see these, the thing that really draws me to it, I see them when I'm just kind of scrolling through there, and I'll see them, and then I'll look and I'll see like all of the likes, and I'm
17,000 upvotes,
right, and then you see all the comments and stuff, and like they're Reddit comments, so 90% of them doesn't have anything to do with whatever the topic is. I've stopped even trying to look at like comments, because sometimes I'll look at them and be like, okay, so what's going on here? Like, what is this about? And I've got to go so fucking deep. I'm like, that just to figure out whatever the hell is going on, because there's always side conversation within people talk about something that somebody did that they made some kind of reference to some TV show that I've never heard of or didn't give 2 shits about.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, what? And then I just give up and be like, I don't give a shit anymore.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at with this is that, people aren't investing in making an entire experience for people anymore. You don't have this whole overarching story like you used to get with the Checkered Man or Edmund Finney in The Meaning to Find Eternal Life, or the Quest to Find the Meaning of Life. It's like, you don't get that. You get these people who are like, I want to do one viral comic, and so they're just gonna crap out these shitty little stick figure drawings. And you even have some where, like, the title is, calling attention to the fact that the art is poor. I know there's a comic, and I'm not specifically calling this one out. This is just that the title, like, sticks with me. It's specifically called Badly Drawn Lines. It's like, I don't know if I really want to call attention to my flaws when I'm trying to sell myself to people. I don't want to be like, hey, this book sucks.
Well, I think it's a way of getting ahead of that.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism.
Right. So it's like, so I've already called it out. So now you can't.
Yeah.
You can't say anything about that. Be like, the artwork is horrible. Like, yeah, we already know that. So
yeah.
So maybe that's a way of saying, look beyond that to see the actual, like, joke or whatever.
Maybe. I'll say maybe. But, like, it feels to me like those people who always overcompensated by, like, walking into a room and being like, hi, I'm really loud and annoying. And it's like, I mean, what, do you expect that to make it more palatable for me?
Right.
It's not like people are going to be like, oh yeah, Jeff's pretty loud and annoying. It's like, yes, but to be fair, he did warn us about it when we met him. It's
right.
Like, no, like...
It's like that scene in Tommy Boy. You go a little heavy with the pine tree perfume there, and it's like, it's a come air freshener. It's like step one is identifying, and step two is washing it off. It's like, okay, well, great, you've come to the realization that you're really loud and annoying. Now step two is stop being that way.
It's just frustrating because I see the same thing happening with webcomics that, and not the exact same, but I see it heading in the same direction that kind of happened with, like, indie comics in the 90s, where, like, you had this window of time where indie comics, it was golden. Ninja Turtles took off, everybody was like, yes, black and white funny books, let's make shit happen, I want to find the next Ninja Turtles, I want to find what's going to be the next big thing. That's why you have guys like Usagi Yojimbo taking off, and like the adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters took off, and things like that. But then
Hamster Vice,
yeah. Hepcats. What were some other Rarebit fiends?
Omaha the Cat Dancer.
Omaha the Cat Dancer, yeah, that was Reed Waller. And so,
you actually know that book?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Dude, I tore into like the entire shit.
No, it was a really good story. I mean,
I shouldn't have just admitted to piracy though.
Well, where else are you going to find it now?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I can buy it directly from him that I'm aware of.
But I was going to say, for what I guess was at the time kind of viewed as like an adult book.
Oh yeah,
it was a really good, like really emotional story.
Mm-hmm. Really complex.
And it was furries before furries.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was back when they still called it Funny Animal. You had a lot of good Funny Animal books. You had like Albedo, you had Critters,
Pogo,
yeah.
I don't really know if that would count. But
no,
yeah.
that was like a really old comic strip. But I mean, it's beautifully drawn, very beautifully drawn, and of course Bone. All that kind of paved the way for Bone to really take off. But then eventually it got to where nobody's really, doing as much as they could be doing with this. And so often, way more often than not, you would buy a book and it would just be disappointing. And it's like, oh, this kind of sucked. And eventually people stopped buying it and then it just kind of died. And, when the industry almost completely tanked because of all the shit that was going on with Marvel and Image and, really throwing out more money than they could possibly afford to reasonably make back, the industry almost completely shut down. And that just kind of killed indie guys, period.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, well, that sucks. And, you had a few hangers-on. Bone stayed around. Cerebus stayed around. They kind of had to. They were giants. It's like, those were books that were too big to kill. But then it's like...
ElfQuest.
Oh, yeah. ElfQuest is still around.
Distant Soil, I think, was during that time, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think she's republishing that as a webcomic. Or at least she was once upon a time. But yeah, she was one of the big self-publishers. But yeah, and so, like, when webcomics really started picking up again, it was, like, kind of a hopeful thing for me, where it's like, oh yeah, obviously they're not doing the same thing that, like, Jeff Smith or Stan Sakai was doing, but it's like, yeah, you got guys who are doing their own thing, and they're doing indie comics, at the end of the day. It's like, you've got a guy who is his own writer, artist, penciler, inker, colorist, the whole 9 yards, and they are self-publishing, they're just doing it online. And so for a long time, for me, it was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, I dig that. But nowadays, I'm just seeing, that kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, oh, what, did you lose your mouth? It's like that. Oh God, why?
And you know what? What I'm not gonna say that what I don't like about it, or what bothers me, is that the ones that I'm not gonna say aren't well done, because it's hard to say that something is not well done, because you don't know the creator's intentions. For them, they may think that they're putting out a really quality product.
Oh, I know a number of people who think that.
But also when you're doing something, and this is gonna sound horrible, because it's gonna sound like I'm really putting these people down, and I'm not trying to, but when you're doing something and it comes very easy to you. Like even people that are gifted and they're prodigies and whatever, it doesn't come easy to them. It just means they have more of like an innate ability to do something.
Yeah, they have more of an aptitude for
it. Right, than you do, but it still it's not easy. When you're able to do something and it comes across very easy for you, that can sometimes, especially when it's not solid work, it's, and you look at it and you're like,
you're not making yourself grow.
It's like when you're looking at you're looking at like a house, and you can look at like house A and house B. They're both houses. They both do the same thing. They both have, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, all that kind of stuff. But that house A is a lot more structurally sound than house B. It also took 2 months longer to make than house B, even though they may be the exact same size, use the exact same layout. It's a matter of how much time you invested to make sure this was a really solid house, and this can stand to the test of time, as opposed to this one here, which is solid for right now, but within a month or a year, you're going to have to start having problems with it. And I think that some people are putting out these really quick houses that really don't stand up. And what that does is it invites other people to do the same thing, to make a quick house, which is, I'm not going to say it's fine, but I mean, you always want to encourage people to do something like whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's people out there that they don't realize, a lot of people out there is like, everyone has something that they're good at, or something that they really, that they would just be, it's incredible at doing. But sometimes they just don't know what that is, because they just haven't been exposed to it. So if there's something that you would be really good at, and you see someone doing it, then it's great that inspires you to do that. But it also needs to inspire you in the right way to be able to grow with that, and then be able to again make a more solid house. If you start out making kind of less than solid houses, that eventually going to start to make a stronger, better house, or a stronger, better webcomic.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage that, but unfortunately, I think what a lot of times you see is that these people see that this person does it with ease, and they don't really put that much into it, because some people like us, we look at them like, that's not funny, right? It's like, I could do that, and it's like, if this person's getting that many upvotes, right, I could do something just like that, just as easily. And
like, why spend 3 months making a 24-page story when I can shit out a stick figure thing in an hour,
right,
and get even more recognition than I would for the 24-page story.
Right, and I think that then inspires a lot of people, on good and bad, to go that route, and it's people that are able to put out a quality product don't, because of that. Like yesterday, we were talking and stuff. We started talking about Todd McFarlane, and I pulled out that DC Invasion book.
Yeah,
but it's early McFarlane work. I think it was like he'd been doing Infinity Incorporated, and then he did the Invasion thing. And his work in that is, I'm not gonna say it's not good, because I mean, does he hit all the basics? Yes. I mean, he draws the characters. They all have unique features. The panels are laid out well. The action is captured. But you can see such a growth between Invasion to Spider-Man standalone
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
I mean, and from there, from Invasion, I think he went Invasion, I think then to Hulk, then to Amazing Spider-Man, then to Spider-Man, then to Spawn.
Right, right.
But you can see in each one of those iterations, you can see a growth with him and a change. I mean,
it goes back to what we've talked about with Liefeld numerous times, which is it's obvious that he gives a damn.
Right.
It's obvious that he cares about his craft and is actively trying to improve, and I don't see that with so many of those things. And, I mean, like, there's definitely still active web comics that are, they're cute, and even if the guy's not really developing his art style, it's not really built for that. But at the same time, it also doesn't feel like a cheap, shitty cash grab either. And that's what so many of these feel like, where it's like, did you put any thought into this at all? It's just frustrating. It's disheartening to me, because it's like, no, we could have made webcomics the next... the next wave of indie stories.
Right.
And, in the early 2000s, it really felt like there was a shot at that. And now I'm starting to feel like there's not as much of a shot at that. Now that you have people like Octopus Pie and, what were some of the others I was bringing up? Octopus Pie is, the series is finished. Mm-hmm. Girls with Slingshots, the series is finished. Even MS Paint Adventures, which is not, like, that's a whole other can of worms, and we could cover multiple episodes talking about that, but, like, it's finished. And for all of its shortcomings, it was an ambitious project. It wound up running, like, 7,000 or 8,000 pages at the end of it. Yeah, it was very, very ambitious. Say what you like about it. People have been pretty critical of it. I'm not crazy about the fan base, but that, like I said, whole other podcast there. But, I'm not seeing this ambition anymore. And maybe it's out there and I'm just not seeing it because, that's always been the problem with webcomics is visibility. It's always been a very oversaturated market, and it's very difficult to find the good stuff unless it's really, really good.
And I think that's one of the problems is that when you look at it, you see this field of, you see this field of poison ivy, mm-hmm. and then somewhere in the middle of it is a rose bush or two. But it's like, am I gonna trudge through all that poison ivy to get to that rose bush, or am I just gonna just say fucking burn the whole thing down?
Yeah, especially when there's like a mangy old farmer who's like intent on throwing the poison ivy up in your face every step along the way, and like, here, look at this. It's like, I don't want to see your shitty stick figure poison ivy.
Right.
I'm looking for the next Octopus Pie. I'm looking for the next Girls with Slingshots.
Yes, and the only reason that I'm giving this so much attention is because it burns and itches so bad, not because I like it.
And God, I don't want to seem like we're attacking people, and I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to say, oh, I'm such a better artist than these people, because at the end of the day, I know that my work is really, really flawed. I know that I have areas I need to improve on, but I'm also actively working on improving it. Right. I'm not going to just keep shitting out stick figure drawings and saying, here you go, good enough. At least I'm working on it. I don't know. It's just
And it's like you were saying, and not trying to shit on anybody or anything, because for you and I would say me more specifically, it's so much easier for me to tell a story in 8 to 22 pages or 24 pages, mm-hmm. than for me to tell even a good joke in 3 to 4 panels.
Oh yeah,
that's difficult. And if I have a whole page to work with, that's a little bit easier. But even that can be difficult to be able to tell a whole like small story or joke or set up to a good joke.
Yeah.
In that amount of time, it does take some skill.
It does, yeah.
But that's part of the problem is that what we're seeing is not skill. We're seeing something that's the equivalent of a knock knock joke. Only you've bypass a knock knock and you've just gone to mm-hmm. This basically who's me, and then bam, there's a punchline. Like I have no idea what led up to this.
Yeah no, I mean that's it exactly, is that it's kind of like SoundCloud rappers, which I kind of hate to say, but like it is something like that where it's like, well, I can't sing and I can't really make music, but I do have a drum machine program here on my computer and I can probably rap, sort of. It's like, what? No, there's a huge difference between just talking over a drum beat versus doing the kind of shit that, like, Deltron does or whatever.
Right.
It's like, yeah, that just because you can do something that resembles a rap does not mean that you're a rapper. And just because
Drake.
Right. Drake, please don't pop a cap in us.
Oh, yeah. He would say he was sorry afterwards. Oh, jeez. I don't know what got into me.
Canadian drive-by.
That's not how I was raised.
Canadian drive-by, they just like soak you with maple syrup.
They drive by and throw a brick at you to say, I'm sorry.
But yeah, and I mean, yeah, God, I hate arrogance. I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to be arrogant with this stuff, and I'm hoping that I'm succeeding in not sounding arrogant here, but it's just like, I want people to give a damn about their craft. What made comics great from the word go, from the very beginning, was that people cared about the art medium that they were working in. And it's like, you can care, you can give a damn, you can do better than what we're currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't like seeing these bad habits developing.
Yeah, and I will say a little bit of it is kind of to be fair, a little bit is kind of sour grapes, and this thing is like, this is horrible. Why are you guys treating this as if this is like great? It's not good. It's not funny. And I look at them, I'm like, where is the joke in this? I'm missing it. Where's the joke? It's like, is it one of those things like electing like the guy you don't like prom king, and that's the joke? Is that what it is? I mean, if so, I'll be like, okay, I get it. I don't think it's funny, but I get it. You know, you guys are pieces of shit, but I get it. You know, but I don't even know if that's it. I
don't think so. I mean, shit, I just saw one the other day, and it was not stick figures. It was actually fully drawn. And it was, it wasn't awful as far as the art goes, but the joke is that he was like, well, I think I'm pretty comfortable with my knowledge about corn. And then he walks by a book, and the book says, everything you thought you knew about corn is wrong. And he's like, oh no, all my corn knowledge. It's like, that's not a joke. That's not even good absurdist humor. Like, I like absurdist humor. I love Monty Python. I love that kind of like random sketch comedy. You know, we were watching a bunch of Mad TV yesterday. That kind of stuff where just like nonsensical shit happens. It's funny to me, but there's nothing funny about that to me.
No, and
it's like that's not even a story.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, right. You're right. We were watching Mad TV, and even when we were watching that, because of course you'd never seen I'd seen it before, so I was showing you some of the different sketches, and not all of them were funny. Some were just kind of fell flat, and you're like, oh, this is kind of hard to watch. It wasn't even cringe; it's just like, oh, this is painful.
Yeah,
you know. But then you had some that were really pretty good, and they're funny. And they're kind of absurdist, and in a way, and it's like you're watching that, and it's I think it's about the crafting, and you really have to try, and you have to put a little bit more to it, and for those of you that aren't really putting any more to it, I just have to say, don't make me break my foot off in your ass.
So I do have one thing I need to bitch about, which it's peripherally related, but kind of different. And we talked about this briefly off mic yesterday, and at which point you were like, yeah, maybe we should make an episode about this. But it's always been a thing amongst artists that, they don't usually draw themselves super appealing. They tend to give themselves some type of flaw, and, I think that's typically to say, I don't think of myself as a crazy handsome person, because again, people don't want to come across as arrogant.
And I've seen people that are like really like good artists, that when they draw themselves, they will draw themselves very cartoony.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not trying to do an actual like interpretation of myself.
Right. And I think that really kind of got its start with Bob Crumb.
Oh, okay.
I think he was kind of the first one who was like, I'm just going to draw myself warts and all here. And, a lot of people were always like, he's exaggerating because he draws himself with a huge dick. But then they did, like, the Crumb documentary, and all of his ex-lovers were like, no, that's accurate. he doesn't exaggerate anything in his comics. But
wow, that's something I wouldn't mind being known for.
Right.
Like, yeah, his comics weren't really that great, but no, he didn't lie. He was... Yeah.
Crumb was a brilliant...
He had a bigger endowment than Harvard.
Crumb was brilliant at his craft. It's just that he explored a lot of really uncomfortable subject matter. And he played it off for laughs, but was like, nah, this is... You probably should have left this one in the sketchbook, Bobby. But
that's why that Keep on Trucking guy's stance is so wide.
Yeah.
It's like...
Like, what, doesn't everybody walk like this?
He can't stand, they when you go to the doctor, they're like, yeah, you want you to stand with your feet together? I can't.
But yeah, and like, I draw myself as kind of a basic cartoon character. You've seen it many, many times at this point, but like, I've gotten to where nowadays I draw the character with like kind of a slouched back and dark circles under his eyes, because it's like, oh, that's what I feel like all the time.
And you draw me with like a nose the size of a pineapple, and I'm like, really? Is that how I look?
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. Go ahead.
But yeah, like the only artist I've really seen who draws themselves appealing for the most part is like Butch Hartman, and we were laughing about that because he got bullied out of using his attractive profile picture. He drew himself as like this super square-jawed, like jacked, handsome muscle man, and somebody on Twitter was like, "Man, you're kind of a piece of shit, you know?" It's like, man, you draw yourself as like this jacked, handsome, buff soap opera stars. Like, man, everybody else draws themselves looking like these disgusting little goblins because that's how they feel about themselves. You're a piece of shit. And so then he like changed his profile picture and everybody was like, holy shit, you bullied Butch Hartman. You bullied the creator of Fairly Odd Parents. And he was like, good.
I mean, yeah, I do think that's kind of unfair, like, to do that to him. I mean, if you... Yeah, bullying is just not me. We've talked about, that and growing up in school and everything. Mm-hmm. Bullying is not cool.
No.
You shouldn't bully somebody, especially if you're like, oh, you draw yourself, looking different than you actually are. It's kind of the whole premise of Fight Club. It's like, every people like, see themselves the way they want to be and not who they really are. So, I mean, like, yeah, so he's gonna, the one aspect he can control, he probably can't control the way he actually looks, but I can draw myself to look the way I really want to. I mean, don't bully him over that.
Yeah, and
bully him over the invention of poof. I mean, if you're gonna bully him over something, make it poof.
Right. I will say, Butch Hartman's not a bad-looking dude. He's fairly handsome. I don't know if he's as handsome as he draws himself, but he's not an ugly guy. It's not like this trollish little Danny DeVito-looking guy, and it's like, how dare you draw yourself handsome? Nah. Like, he's not in bad shape or anything, but yeah, I mean, for, like, all the flaws
of, your place, Butch.
For all the flaws of, like, Fairly Odd Parents or whatever, I've always liked Butch Hartman's art. I like that style. I could see reading a comic in that style.
Did he also do Danny Phantom?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really care for that show.
It was alright. Steven Silver actually handled a lot of the character designs.
He also did, what was that crappy thing?
Did the live action Fairly Odd Parents starring Drake Bell.
Oh. But that was, God, with the live action one, that was directed by Savage Steve Holland, I think.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember I was looking at it, and I think I gotta remember, I think the live action one was directed by Savage Steve Holland.
Wow.
The guy that did like One Crazy Summer and Eek the Cat and stuff. I was like, what? Like,
I couldn't finish that. That was just that. As much as I love like cringy internet stuff, that was a bridge too far for me.
So you want to know something funny?
Sure.
Is the Ben 10 live action movies?
Mm-hmm. I did not know there were live action Ben 10 action movies.
The Ben 10 live action movies were directed by Alex Winter.
Wow. Okay.
And for those of you who are like, who? Alex Winter, the other half of Bill and Ted?
Wow. That is crazy. But yeah, no, so I bring all this up about like the way people draw themselves because I've noticed it's becoming more and more of a trait amongst female artists. And now, here we go with Acomi being a misogynist, but I think I've already kind of burned like any chance I have of getting laid by being on this podcast, so But yeah, like, instead of drawing themselves as, like, these slouched over, like, here, I'm gonna highlight my physical defects or whatever, and, like, I'm gonna accentuate the dark circles under my eyes, I'm gonna accentuate the fact that I have a slouched back, whatever. Instead, they just tend to do some kind of weird gimmick, like, with their clothing or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothers me, because it's like, oh, here's my, like, super attractive anime character, but I'm just gonna give it a newspaper hat. Because she's quirky. And it's like, that. You don't do that in real life. You're not accentuating any kind of, like, actual shortcoming that you have. And I'm not saying that you have to if you're drawing yourself. I'm just saying, it's kind of like the tradition, so to speak. But it's like, I know you don't go out into public wearing a newspaper hat.
Well, now, Mike and Melissa.
He doesn't count.
I'm sorry. For those that didn't do the Let's Watch of Mike and Melissa, right?
Yeah, he wore a weird like aviator style hat with like furry ears sewn on.
And you told me he did that all the time.
All the time, yeah. There was like several pictures of him in real life with that hat on. So yeah, I still want his shirt. I am Mike the Hardcore and Awesome.
Well, so it's if you're drawing something that is I think it's the difference between when you're drawing you and when you're drawing a caricature or a representation of you. Like, this is not the real me, you know, like, as much as I hate to bring this up because I really can't stand this movie, but that movie was it oh crap, see, this is how much I hate the movie. What's it, this shit, I can't think of it. Now I gotta look it up just because I can't remember the stupid thing. Sorry. Just bear with me, folks, or we could just edit this part out, which I know you won't because you never edit out shit. Even when I say, hey, please edit this part. And it's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll take care of it.
I got you, fam.
Yeah. This is, edit it out. This is the end. Seth Rogen and all them, where you've got all of them playing, you know, like characters of themselves. They're not really being themselves. You know, they're playing these versions of themselves. So if you're going to draw a version of yourself, right? So like, this isn't really me. This is more of like an exaggerated version of me, and I'm telling like some stories from my life over there, but they're also going to be slightly exaggerated. You know, for the then okay, that makes sense. But if you really are kind of like doing you, then, like you said, like why kind of give yourself this weird, like I'm doing me, but at the same time, I'm just going to tweak this little thing right here to give it like a different kind of appeal, because
it feels like you're trying to be quirky without having a real quirk to me. And maybe this is like the nitpickiest shit ever, but I don't know. It's like I see
that's what we built our channel, our podcast off of, just like the nitpickiest shit.
Yeah, I don't know, just like
God, I can't stand fucking socks and sandals. What asshole does that?
That's not nitpicky. That's just facts. Facts morning, everybody, except to my mother. That post from Jaden Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Facts morning, except to my mother. Tell him, son. My condolences to Will Smith, but yeah,
I'm sure he's crying himself to sleep at night in his big, huge cache of money and all of his fame. And we're like, oh no, there's only 8 other million people and the women in the world that are probably younger and hotter than my wife that want to be with me,
all
but
of
I
whom
can't
would be
have
willing
her.
to sleep with me.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, I remember reading something like a long time ago about them having an open relationship because they would be away, like, doing filming. He might be away doing a movie for, like, 4 months. She might be away doing something else. And, like, it was this is just what I read, so don't hold me to it. But it was this kind of thing where it's like, when I'm away, or you're away, it's kind of okay for us to, you know, mess around with somebody else because we can't be there with each other, with the understanding that we're going to tell one another that this is what we're doing. And it's only during this time period that we're away, and that's it. And I'm going to put this out there. This is just an observation of mine, and that's all it is. I'm not saying that there's anything more to it. Never read anything about it. So this is just an observation of mine. That's all it is. But Will Smith was in a movie with Margot Robbie called Closer. The next movie that they were in together was Suicide Squad. And Closer, they played there was a con artist couple thing where they used to be a couple, and he taught her how to con and grift, and then they end up kind of coming back together. The next thing you know, they're in Suicide Squad together. If you watch Suicide Squad, there are some scenes where there's some like eye contact and body language between them, even though there's nothing between the two of the characters on there, that makes me wonder if there was something that kind of, I mean, she's a hot chick and he's a nice looking guy. I couldn't put it past either one of them. And I can't say that if I was him, that I wouldn't. And if I was her, I most definitely wouldn't, because I don't like guys. But I'm just saying, just putting it out there. Or this just could be my way of tricking you guys into watching Suicide Squad again, because I do like that movie.
It's a pretty good movie.
I enjoy it.
I like it, yeah.
So anyway, that's that. That's all there is to it. I'm done.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm being too jaded with all this, but at the same time, it's like, this is stuff that it's frustrating to see, because, in 2003, I would have been like, yeah, no, webcomics are where it's at, man. This is, it's gonna be like when Cerebus was at its height, and you got all the indie guys, rolling into Comic-Con in limos and tuxes, because it's like, yeah, we're the big shots, and now it's like, no, here's another stick figure comic.
And you do what you... I think my problem is, if I have a problem, and again, we've already discussed it, I'm not a big, webcomic indie guy, and it's just like you're not a big superhero guy. It's all about exposure and what we originally started, reading. Mm-hmm. And, and I've said this before, I've started to kind of bring more books to your attention. You've brought more books and things like that to my attention. Yeah. And I'm thankful for it, because I like having, my interest, kind of broaden, yeah, and seeing things I normally wouldn't see. So I really dig that. That's cool. So it's not that I dislike any of these people or don't think they should be doing that or whatever, but it's like you said with the comics crash, you had a lot of books that came out in the 90s that were not very well written, mm-hmm, not very well drawn. They came out with their number ones in their hollow foil, poly bag, limited edition, come with the card, unrippable Tyvek covers with a die cut hole in the center, and
embossed.
Right. And I think I know there's a bunch of other ones that they had with different things or whatever, variant artist editions and stuff.
They still do that stuff.
And they came out there and they sold a shit ton of those books. Oh, and got to have a female protagonist with a hot body and big tits that is either showing her big tits, or there's this hint of possible nudity. But that's intriguing people, and they sold a ton of those books. And I'm not going to say that they were the reason for the crash, but you had people that just jumped on that bandwagon, mm-hmm, just put out the shittiest, cheapest thing they could as quickly as they could, grabbed that cash and just absconded, and left the rest of the industry kind of struggling. And it was their fault, the industry's fault in a sense, because they opened the doors for that and they perpetuated that, mm-hmm, and they didn't stop that train when they realized that they had no brakes.
Right.
Nobody
did anything to help.
Right. They didn't slow it down. They were like, oh, let's put some bags of sand out there, something to slow us down with, they were just like, nah, the only way to slow the car down is to, make it go faster, and I see the same thing here from what you've been saying, some of the things I've seen, and it's that it's gonna go to this point where when it does crash, you're gonna have the people that were the true people that are gonna be there now struggling to, mm-hmm, continue to do what they did before and try to build it back up, which sometimes it can't. So it's it's not that I want these people to stop doing what they're doing. It's just I just want to prevent that crash that could kill it all. Mm-hmm. And so that's and I think right now webcomics are one of the things we have to, as far as comic book fans or any kind of like hand-drawn comic animation kind of things, mm-hmm, that fans of, that we really have to show our love and support to, because one of the things we saw, especially right now, was where you had some of the big comics companies that stopped production completely, and they didn't print, and comic book stores they didn't have any new books to come out, and they weren't, yep, putting out anything digitally. And, and you've got to start making plans and preparations for if something like this happens in the future, or if it continues on, or whatever happens, and to say that what's our next medium, or how are we going to be able to do this? Because digital really tried as far as comics go, and it didn't really take off
Yeah.
the way people thought it would. But if we have another situation like this, that may be your only option for some, to get it out there, at least for the time being, whatever that is. So you've got to keep that medium alive, and not just on a respirator. You've got to keep it active. It may not be like Joe Fitbody, right? But it at least has to be out there, like power walking through the mall.
Yeah.
So that, you have more people to power walk with it. It can't be limping along, on the side of the road with a walker, because everyone's going to ignore it.
The thing is, it's like, it can grow, and it needs to grow. It's like, what would excite me more than anything right now would be to see somebody who's like, here's the first 400 pages of what's going to be a 2,000-page story. It's like, that would thrill me, but nobody's doing that anymore, and it's so frustrating. Because it's like, I don't know if there's ever going to be another Sam and Fuzzy. I don't know if there's ever going to be another thing where it's like, yeah, at the end of it, it's going to be, like a 9 graphic novel series or whatever. And it's like, well, you've already finished 6 of them, so I believe you. I know you're well on your way to doing this. So it's like, I don't see that happening. It's like, this was, for a window of time, this was something that people could make a pretty decent living off of. Not like a great living, but, people I saw were comfortable with it. I mean, yeah, you also have, like, your train wrecks, like questionable content, and holy shit, we're already, like, 10 past the hour anyway, so I can't get into all that, but...
And I would say that, you were talking about people making a living off of it. Most webcomic people, they don't really make a living off of the webcomic themselves, because you're putting it out there for free. And, some people I think do charge, for a subscription, to the web series.
Yeah, there's some subscription walls, which I don't do.
I can't really see, but one thing to remember is that for the people that are doing that, if they're making any money off of it, it's off of any ad revenue, that comes to their site. If they have that. But if you have people that are sharing it on different, like sites like Reddit or other social media things, that ad revenue you're not getting, because they're, sharing that directly to this thing. So you're not getting that hit to your thing. But the only other way they're probably making any money off of it is collected editions.
Mm-hmm.
But that webcomic that they're doing, that takes time.
Yeah.
And if you're not making any money off of it, that means that you have another job or something else that you're doing to earn money. And then I'm also still putting aside time to do this right here.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets
becomes a labor of love.
Right. And if it gets to a point where people aren't feeling the love, it's like, I don't really have a good reason to continue on, because it's not doing anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just put a little bit of extra time into something else that I'm doing, to make up that money, then it becomes like, well, or to actually make money, then it becomes this thing where it's like, well, is it worth it for me to put 4 hours a week into doing this webcomic, or if I put that 4 hours into something else,
right.
that could, I don't know, provide me with something more, or enrich my life in a way more than what I'm getting from this, because I'm not getting, the support or love. And not necessarily because they've got a bunch of hacks out there, but just because it's, when things kind of get flooded, or it's just like when you're making friends with people, there's guilt by association.
Right.
Right. And you don't want to, for people that don't know you, you don't want to get caught up in that. You don't want to be labeled as one of these other people when you're not, because, that you're Spaceballs, like, I'm surrounded by assholes.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And, it used to be that when I told people that I made comics, they would always be like, oh, you mean like Garfield? I like Doonesbury. And it's like, no, that's not at all the kind of thing I do. And nowadays, it's more like, great, if I tell people that I make comics, that's what they're going to think. And, it's like, I'd almost rather be associated with, like, the Rage Face comics than some of the shit that I'm seeing today.
What about Pepe? Would you rather be associated with him?
Pepe was originally pretty cool. It's not really the creators. No, hold on, hear me out.
No, I know that. I was just I'd rather be associated with that than this.
It's not the creators' fault that the white supremacists kidnapped Pepe and forced it to become their symbol of their weird little faction. And he actually has been trying to, like, like redesign the character and then copyright it so that they can't do that.
Well, I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah, right. It's the internet.
I'm just saying, I mean, like, I'm going to copyright it, but don't most, like, racist people like that, don't they kind of stay undercover? So it's going to be kind of hard to enforce that copyright law for people who make it their job not to be known.
Like, well, I was going to be racist, but now that I found out that it's not really easy to do it legally, I mean... But no, I mean, I don't want to be associated with white supremacists, but...
But yet you love racist Spain.
So do you, to be fair. You've made better racist Bane jokes than I have.
That's because you limit yourself. You're so afraid of being labeled a racist. I can see when I make a certain joke and there's just a relief that washes over your face. You're like, good, the joke got out there and I didn't have to say it.
Thank good it's out there on the table. Yeah, I mean, it seems like every season we have at least one episode where we do this, where it's like, you know, it took us a long time to say it, but really all we're saying is we just wish people would give a damn about what they do.
Yeah,
it just it. Like, you just put some effort in there.
And if what you're doing is the best you can do, then that's fantastic.
Or get good.
Yeah. You know? But I think it's just like we've always said with that thing, just grow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and growth or growing doesn't always mean that you're gonna like become exponentially better.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows that passion and love for what you do.
Yeah.
Because you're always striving to do something a little bit, make it a little bit stronger than it was, the day before.
Yeah. Just show some effort. Yeah, that was one thing that really stood out to me with Dave Sim. This is going to be like my closing statement here. But Dave Sim always said that whenever people would, back when he was still going to cons, that whenever people would bring him their portfolio or bring them stacks of pages, like, he would look at it to see what constructive criticism he could offer. But like at the end of the day, his goal was, if you show me page 1 through page 20, and page 20 looks better than page 1 did, then I'm going to tell you, you're on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep it up. That's all that he wants to see out of somebody, is to say, you've had growth from point A to point B. You're clearly trying to get better. It's like, that's really all I strive for with my stuff. As long as I can look and say that the last page is better than the first page, then I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, man.
So yeah. Anyway, so a little bit of a long episode, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't have a lot to really contribute. I just made a bunch of bad references as we went through. But yeah, I think more than anything, whenever we have like one of these episodes like this, it's not because we really want to shit on people. It's because we feel so passionate about it and because we have a love for it.
Yeah.
That we're just like, we don't want to see it go away.
Right.
In any fashion. Right. We always want to see it get better. And that's really what we're saying is here is we just want this to get better.
Yeah, definitely.
So
anyway.
All right, everyone. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. This is Turk182. You can find me on Twitter at Turk182_KE.
Yep, and I'm Acomi. Once again, you can find me pretty much anywhere at Acomi Draws.
But I'm sorry, you were at Acomi. I'm sorry. You said that you're like at Acomi Draws. I thought you were going to say something else, but yeah, you're Acomi Draws on everything.
Yeah, right? Any social media, Acomi Draws.
And thanks for checking us out, and please like and subscribe. And I hate to do this and be like, please give us a rating and blah blah blah, but it's what I hear from every other podcast that I listen to, just about every other podcast that I listen to. So, and I'm not gonna say just because everyone's saying it, there has to be some truth in it, but even the bigger podcasts that I listen to, are always saying the same thing, which is, please give us a like, subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Give us a review. 5 stars is always the best, because that really kind of helps elevate us so that we can get get our name out there more, hopefully get more listeners. And the more listeners we get, the stronger our podcast gets. And the more we can do and the more time we can invest in it and make the podcast grow. I would say it's like a mantra of ours. So we say this every time, but or we've said this in the past, but this is kind of our labor of love.
Yeah.
And we both have other works and jobs and projects that we're doing, but the more you can help our podcast to grow, the more time that we can actually put into our podcast and making it. I'm not going to say necessarily making it better, but making it stronger. And so, yeah, please, like I said, if you like it, leave us a review. Like I said, if you can give us 5 stars, that's fantastic. And for those of you that don't necessarily like it, if you have to leave us a review, say you don't really like it, that's fine. But I will ask you this, tell us something that you didn't, at least say what you didn't like about it, because we're never going to get better if you just say this sucks, So thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.
Did you hear when I paused? After the right there, folks, that was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.